Vengeance. Well, hi, Vengeance. I'm Laser Dude. Nice to meet you. I know it's kind of lame starting on a dad joke, but I had nothing else. I go to intro.
Let's all go watch the review. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Laser Dude review. Today we are reviewing The Batman. That's right, reviewing the movie of the sixth time that Batman's been portrayed in live action? Yeah, sixth time, because we've got Keaton, then we got Kilmer, then we got Clooney, then we got Bale, then we got Affleck, so now we have Pattinson. So The Batman it's a reboot of the Batman franchise. We are starting it with Robert Pattinson as Batman. This movie is directed by Matt Reeves. I just want to say right off the bat, this movie had an impossible task. You know, it had a task of retelling the Batman story, a story that's been told so many times, trying to make it new, at the very least fresh, in a way that you want to come back and seeing it. But also it had to try to differentiate itself from the other movies that have been gone before it, and so it doesn't do the exact same things. So here's what is the big thing about the Batman. The Batman doesn't pace or sort itself out like any of the other Batman movies, and I will say that makes it very refreshing and does make it stand out on its own. As it being an early going Batman movie, it does draw comparisons to movies like Batman Begins or the original 1989 Batman movie with, directed by Tim Burton. But in a lot of ways, it handles it in a way that is unique. Robert Pattinson as Batman, let's just get into the nitty-gritty of it. I would say he did pretty good. I wonder if people were not judging Robert Pattinson this time. Because think about it, when Heath Ledger was announced as the Joker, everyone judged it, oh, it's gonna suck, and it turned out it was amazing. Back even further, people were like, oh, Michael Keaton as the Batman, that's not gonna work, that's gonna suck. And it didn't. And so I feel like now when everyone's like, Robert Pattinson! Well, I don't want to be in the camp that said he was a terrible pick and then was wrong. So, we'll wait and see! For the most part, I think he does a okay job. It's a different portrayal of Batman for sure. In fact, this movie focuses more on Batman, the costumed version of Batman, than any of the other movies. This is mostly Batman-centric. This feels in a lot of ways like an episode of Batman the Animated Series, where he's mostly in the suit. It's all being told of him through the suit and what he's doing. And the Bruce Wayne part is kind of a side thing. It's not really a main part of the story, but it is touched on here and there, but it's not really what his character is all about at the moment. I will say there were some moments where I felt like he could have used a little bit more darkness in his voice, where he was just talking, and it felt like he was just talking, like he was doing it in a lower register, but it felt like he was just talking just like you would normally talk to someone. Now, I prefer that over the of Christian Bale, he was over the topness. But I also like that it sounds more natural than Ben Affleck's, because Ben Affleck's had a voice changer synthesizer. And I feel like it allows him to come across as more natural. But I will say that it leaves his Bruce Wayne a lot to be desired, because his Bruce Wayne is kind of non-existent for the most part, and it's done intentionally that way. But because of that, a lot of the other supporting cast also doesn't get a chance to shine as much as they could. Like, for example, we got Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon wasn't the example I wanted to bring up, but let's talk about him. We got Jim Gordon, and he's done actually pretty decently well. It's interesting, we don't really get too much to develop characters, It's not like Batman Begins, as I say, it draws some comparison to Batman Begins, where we develop the characters and then put them together. Here we're just putting them together, and then you have to just move along with it. When Batman says you're a good cop, obviously we know Jim Gordon's a good cop, but if you didn't know, you would just have to trust that because he says he is. The movie is also structured differently than normally it's just I don't know. I found like for the first half of this movie, a lot of it was about Cobblepot and Carmine Falcone, which I didn't even know Carmine Falcone was in this movie, much less have the huge role that he did in this. But when it was focusing on that, I was like, okay, well, I'm interested in seeing where this is going. And Jonathan Turturro does Carmine Falcone, and he is so great. I still, don't want to compare too much to Batman Begins, but I would still prefer that Falcone just because he was. I don't know. But that's just comparing preferred movies. I want to stop doing that. Let me just get to the brass tacks. Is this a better movie than Batman Begins or The Dark Knight? No. Is it better than movie than Dark Knight Rises? I'd say yes. Better than movie. It's interesting when thinking about it, because if this movie was the movie that came out instead of The Dark Knight or Batman Begins or anything like that, if this is the movie that came out right after Batman and Robin, I think this would be hailed pretty heavily as the best superhero movie of all time at that point in history. Now, I don't think I would hail it as that. I still honestly wouldn't even hail it as the best Batman movie, but it's a very well done Batman movie. Although I will say I don't feel like this movie is going to have as far of a reach as it does to the general public as a movie like Batman Begins or The Dark Knight did. Because those movies, I think, introduced all the characters to the Batman lore, made it all make sense, fit into a nice little package, where this movie, I feel like there's just stuff that they expect you to know or accept just right off the bat. And it does play more to a comic book-like universe. Like, Batman walks into crime scenes, and the other police is like, are you kidding me? You this guy? He's walking over our crime scene? What's going on here, And then, they didn't really have that for Batman to be able to do that in any of the other Batman movies of the original of the Nolan Batman movies, because there was the one scene where Batman shows up at a crime scene, one officer turns a blind eye, but it wasn't implied that he walked through everybody and everybody let him through. He was still a wanted fugitive, where here he is a vigilante, but he has a little bit more of a leeway. Some of the police don't like him, but they don't seem to be after him to try to arrest him necessarily. So I feel like it fits more into the comic book world. But what I was saying is, because it's focusing on Batman and the mystery element, and I want to give it props to that because there is, a lot of that in here, and I like that it was trying to uncover this web of mysteries, and we've had because of that, some of the supporting characters get thrown to the wayside, like Alfred. He doesn't have as much to do in this movie. He doesn't really do too much, and the scenes that he's in, I feel like, are rushed and a little forced. And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. Because I was really looking forward to seeing Andy Serkis as Alfred. And I hope he's in the next franchise, or the next movie that they do with this. I hope that he has a little bit more to chew on, a little bit more screen time to chew on. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it after this, but I'll talk more on that in the spoilers. Let's talk about Paul Dano as the Riddler. I will say, I was with him by the end. By the end of the movie, I was like, okay, he did a really good job, because they handled it in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting. I wasn't on board for the costume. Let me just say it right there. That looks nothing like the Riddler. It looks like a gimp suit, okay? It doesn't look like something that the Riddler would use, The Riddler is the type of character that wants to show off his intelligence more, so he wants to come off as super sophisticated and classy, so he usually has a suit on as kind of his go-to suit. I'm not saying you should have had him in the full Jim Carrey leotard sort of thing. I was thinking you should have something, it's funny enough, of the Batman. You could have had more of a look like he did in The Batman. That more of a creepy, gothic sort of look. I thought that could have worked. But, sure, the costume's not the greatest. That's fine. By the end of the movie, when we got to see the character fully revealed, I was actually really on board with him. I was like, okay, this is interesting. It's an interesting take. I'll get more into that in the spoiler part of the review of the direction they went with him, but I liked what they did with that. And I liked how he came across in the movie. It was, as I say, the costume wasn't great, but the other stuff that he was doing, live streaming his thing, building an online community of people who follow him and stuff, that's really good. What he does with the district attorney in this movie is so amazing. That's a great scene. So Paul Dano, thumbs up all around for his performance. It's very good. There was a couple of times where I feel like he's channeling a little bit, like there's a time where he does like a video to the news media sort of thing. I'm like, oh, that's a little leisure-esque, but it's fine. It's not the, end of the world. They do have some cool Batman gadgets in this movie. I do like, there's just a lot of cool stuff, like his suit. The suit, I gotta say, I'm gonna say this on record, this is the best looking live action Batman suit that there's been. Period. Yeah, Dark Knight's Batman suit has been my favorite so far, but even that, I think it's just like this one looks like the Batman suit. Especially it looks like the Batman suit from the Arkham Knight game, the Arkham Knight game. That's what it reminds me of. But also, like, its bat symbol actually has a batarang in it, and he can pull that out and use that as a weapon. That's flipping cool. His eyes have like contacts in them where he can take them out and watch everything that he's recorded. That's flipping cool. That's really good, and I like that because Batman's not able to take the evidence from the crime scene, but he has recorded data of everything that he sees, and he's like taking a close look at everything. And like I was looking at, like when he was walking and looking at the crime scene, I was like, it's looking like he's trying to record, but does he have something? I don't know. And then when he took out the contacts and it has that was really cool. Now his relationship with Catwoman. It's always hard for something like this, because for a relationship like this, it's hard to develop in a few, couple of days that those characters will have together. That's the time period they have, just a few days. And so the time period, the timetable is pretty limited. But I will say that for what they got, they do a pretty good job with it. They have some chemistry that they go off of each other. Zoe Kravitz, I believe is her name, and she's really good. I do wish that she didn't have the earring and everything. I always get picky when women have aesthetic stuff. I'm like, oh come on. She has long fingernails. At first I was against that, but they kind of do something with it, so I'm okay with it. But still, like an earring, this is the last thing you want is somebody ripping that out of your ear, But nitpick, not that big of a deal in the long run. But yeah, I like their dynamic a little bit. We don't really get to see too much into Bruce's head to the point where they actually have a narration. I do want to say that though, the beginning of this film is so good. The first few minutes of this film where he's narrating, first I'm like, oh, what is this, Sin City? But I actually really like how it works, where you got criminals doing crime, and then every one of them will look at a dark corner. And he says, I can't be everywhere at once, but my fear can. And that's so good. That is so Batman, where every one of them are looking at the dark corner, pissing themselves like he could be there. He could be there. He could be coming after me at any moment. And in one of them, he is. And he is there, and he totally wrecks everything. It is so good. It's a hard movie to put my finger on. It is a long movie. It's 3 hours long. 3.5? Either way, so it passed the 3-hour mark. It does drag for some time. I do like parts. I don't want to say I like parts. I like Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He's really good. I like how there's a lot of scenes where it's just Batman will take the Penguin, interrogate him, and then leave, and that's totally felt like it was out of the comics. Comic book accuracy was actually a big thing in this, because in a way that I wasn't expecting. There's a lot of times where well, in the comics it's this, but I don't think they'll do that. And then they did it. I'm like, oh, okay, they've actually paid attention to the obscure comic stuff that not every fan knows. So that was really good and interesting. I will say that even though there's a lot of stuff in here that I like, it doesn't necessarily fold to a perfect piece. I like the parts as the individual parts. I'm not necessarily sure how they mold together as a whole. It's you're making a cake, you like the individual flavors of a cake, but you don't put lemon meringue with pumpkin pie. Pumpkin cake. All right, pumpkin cake isn't a thing. But if it was, you wouldn't put them together. Now I want to Google if pumpkin cake is a thing. Anyways, there's also different moments that Batman can show off him being a hero into this film. This is it's not always just him beating up a criminal and whatnot. There is different stuff that he does in here that I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that he's doing that. And yeah, okay, I think I'm done talking about it in the non-spoiler part, because I really just want to get to the spoilers parts of this. So, overall, I would say that Matt Reeves' The Batman is definitely a good take on the character. I'm looking forward to what they do next, especially with what they seem to be hinting. If you You don't have to stay for the end credits scene. Trust me, you don't. I'll get into that in the spoiler part. You don't have to. There's nothing you're going to miss. You can leave when the credits happen. There is something there. I won't spoil what it is, but there is something there, but it's not worth staying, just so you know. If you do stay, you've been warned. And so, overall, though, I'm debating whether giving this a 7.5 or an 8. Just because, like, I feel like it's on the cusp of being a great movie, but I think it's probably just a really good movie. It's so close. It's so close in my mind. But in the end, I think I'm going to have to go to 7.5 out of 10. This is a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Does it handle every single thing about Batman perfectly? No, it doesn't. But overall, it handles its story well. I was well invested throughout the whole movie. Even though it was a long movie, there wasn't any point where I'm just like, oh, just get over with already. Even when there was something that happened that when you thought it was ending but it didn't, I was like, okay, that's great. Let's keep it going. You know, so in any case, I am thumbs up for this movie. It's really fun. Yeah, so spoiler warning. Definitely see this movie if you haven't seen it before. See the movie before you continue on with the video. You know what a spoiler warning is. So, I will say this. I liked what they did with the Riddler, of how he, at the start of this film and throughout the most of it, viewed him and Batman as equals. Because the Riddler's whole thing in comics is he wants to prove that he's smarter and better than Batman. You know, that's the whole thing. That I'm smarter than you, you are not on my level. But I like that they start his obsession with him viewing Batman here as an equal. And it's true, like, Batman literally did everything that the Riddler wanted to. And he was doing it because it was a mystery that was important to him and whatnot and everything. But now that Batman has rejected him, told him, you're just a freak. There's nothing special about you. You're just a terrible human being. And now the Riddler is going against him. I can see now that part of his personality coming out. And like at first I thought that he was a little bit too dark to be the Riddler. You know, Paul Dano, I thought it was like, okay, this is really dark and twisted. But the scene with the DA when he drives the car into the funeral and then has the bomb strapped to his head, that was really good. I love the scene with him, you know, like in the when he uncovers the whole thing and he goes into the final message that he sent to his followers. He's not like, ooh, we're so great. He's talking like normal, like, yeah, thank you so much for what you talked to me on plastic explosives. I would really appreciate this community and stuff. It's like a guy like me talking to my subscribers. It's like, hey, I really appreciate everyone who subscribed. Now let's go kill some people. Don't actually do that. I was just using that as an example, so please don't do that. I don't think anyone's that loyal to me anyway. For the comic stuff that they did that I was surprised that they did, we have Catwoman's dad being Carmine Falcone, which I'm not sure if the comics have ever necessarily 100% confirmed. We know that Catwoman believes that at the end of the Long Halloween, or is it Dark Tomorrow? Either way, one of them, she says that she believes that he is her father. So there's that. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool that they did that. And then the fact that Martha Wayne was related to the Arkhams, that's really interesting. And that Carmine Falcone's life was saved by Thomas Wayne. That's also something that was in the Long Halloween, so that's interesting. We got Catwoman. No, not Catwoman. Catwoman scratching Carmine Falcone's face, even though we didn't get like the three scars, we still get her scratching his face. I like that. I like those scenes. It's, what else? I will say that's not how I envisioned the Iceberg Lounge to look, like a club. You know, for me, I always thought the Penguin had it more of a classy place, but maybe he'll class it up for the next film. It's like, yeah, this isn't for the scum of the city. This is where Gotham's finest come and hang out. Colin Farrell as the Penguin was so much fun. I just want to say that again. You would not recognize Colin Farrell in this role, but on the outside, he looks so much like there's another person, and he totally gets the Penguin down. I'm looking forward to seeing him being the new head of the mob in the next movie. You know, that's actually going to be pretty fun. That's good. That's great. Hey, Joker tease. It's interesting that they're going to the Joker so soon. I know he's Batman's biggest villain, and don't get me wrong, I love the Joker and everything, but I'm just like, already, maybe we should have waited till like a third movie, give us a little bit more distance. Also, it doesn't, so you don't feel like you're copying out with, like, you know, Dark Knight did Joker second, now you're doing Joker second, you know, differentiate yourself from them. But who knows, like, even though, like, maybe Joker doesn't come to the third one, you know, maybe they do build up. Just because he said that he wants to team up with the Riddler in this one doesn't mean that they'll do it until the next, in the next movie. It could be a couple movies from now. In any case, yeah, I liked it, what this the way this handled it. The flooding of the city was really cool. I do like when villains can just like, hey, let's just have nature take you on. That was really cool. That would cause like so much damage to so many lives, but also drawing everybody into the stadium and then shooting at them. I love that Batman is there in a relief effort to like you know, try to help everyone, digging them out of the rubble and stuff. That's really good that he's not just there like, I'm the knight. I beat up the bad guys, now I leave. That's really good. Although, I know Batman was looking at the kid because he saw himself in the kid, but the inner comic book geek in me is like, that kid would look good in red and yellow and a domino mask and fighting alongside me. I'm like, kid, you're lucky you still got your mother, because, like, Batman looks at orphans like a Deadshot looks at ammo. Okay, that's a bad joke. But, anyways, what else do I got here? There's a lot of great moments in the fight scenes. There's so many, like, where he's crashing in at the end of the stadium and just blows the ceiling and then crashes in. That's really good. What else is there? There's a lot of really good scenes. The scene where they're just shooting at him and the hallway's only lit by the gunfire, and he's like, okay, that suit takes on so many bullets this whole movie, and like not one of them seems to mark a dent in the thing. That is a little bit like unbelievable, but what can I say? It's still a really cool scene with like the bullets bouncing off him and him like punching the crap out of them. That's still really good. I feel like that's what they were trying to do in that one scene in The Dark Knight Rises where you know, it just looked, but this just looks like Christian Bale's doing this in the dark, like, It didn't look as cool as it did in here, where he was just like marching forward, and it's just like that was really cool. There was a couple of really cool fight scenes. The chase scene, not that it was hard to make out what was happening, but it wasn't as like fun. I don't know. It's like in comparison to the other Batmobile chase sequences, I would say, I don't know, better than Forever and Robin and maybe a couple of the Tim Burton ones. But, yeah, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, gotta stop comparing it. Although the way that the tankers all went together and the ramp went perfectly, I'm like, okay, that's something out of Cars. Come on, man. But, yeah, the Batmobile itself, meh. Well, not one of my favorite Batmobiles. It seems to be more like a souped up, I don't know, I don't even know which word to say. It looked like just a souped-up regular car. But I guess he has to start somewhere. We don't really see how he's getting... Now, here's the one thing I wish that they did do a scene with, which I still can do in the next one. Gotham City is flooded. There's so much damage and everything. Batman's dragging people out of rubble and whatnot. That's good. But there should have been a scene where Bruce and Alfred come together and he says, I can't just save this city as Batman. I need to also try to save it as Bruce Wayne. And then he donates some money, you know, does some philanthropy out there, you know, starts raising awareness for Gotham as Bruce Wayne, and then at night as Batman, you know, and they still can do that. They still can do that. The next movie's like, Gotham's come a long way, and it's, surprise, surprise, Bruce Wayne who led the way in driving our city back to the good. You know, something like that. That can be great. The scene where the Riddler's like, Bruce Wayne. Like, to me, I was like, he doesn't know. Oh, actually, no, I thought he did know, actually. I did think he knew, but I thought they were gonna take inspiration from Hush, where Batman says to him, is like, a riddle that everybody knows is worthless, so you know this, but as soon as you tell anyone, it's not going to be worth anything. But he didn't know, and I do like that he's talking to Bruce, and he can't even imagine what an orphan, like, he does, like, oh, he's rich, and everyone viewed them, and they ignored us. I mean, I'm sure that was true to an extent, but it's not like you're, like, justifying that because you were poor, like, yours was worse than his. Just because somebody is rich doesn't mean they're happier or more well off. It was an interesting choice for me that they decided to not use, like, actual drugs in this movie. Like, I guess because they're they're trying to get that PG rating, which is, I'm surprised they got. But you know what? It's like, because, like, that last scene is just like a mass shooting. There's definitely, like, it reminded me of Vegas, for crying out loud. It was dark. I'm just saying, I'm surprised they got a PG rating. And I'm surprised they decided to go with, like, drops. They said drops all the time. Like, oh, they're drop heads and stuff like that. They made up a drug. I don't know if there's a reason for that, or if maybe that's... Because it's still a drug, right? They still got to put that in their thing. Like, what's the difference between drops and heroin, Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wanted to talk about. I wish Alfred got more, but I understand. They delivered on the fact that this was a mystery, although I will say the one part I didn't like is where they're like, a rat with wings. Well, it could be a Batman, but could be a penguin. Yes, a penguin. It's like a rat with wings. It really isn't. Unless Gotham City rats are like New York City rats, they're really not the same. And then they're like, no, a falcon. No. You know why they say rat with wings and it's in reference to a bat? It's because it's a mammal. And it's the only flying mammal. So no, a falcon doesn't work. Neither does a penguin. Come on, Batman, that doesn't work. But there were parts of it. Like, I like it was like URL that as being part of the code. It was like a website. That's really good. It is true to the Riddler, how he does these crimes, but he does leave hints of what his true motivation is. You gotta find it out. It does stay true to the Riddler in that regard. By the end of it, I bought him as the Riddler. I thought he was really good. I actually like his, he said to the Batman, like, well, I needed your help. I'm all up here. I don't have any muscles and stuff like that. And yeah, and then the fact that he's like, oh, you didn't figure it out. I thought you were smarter. That felt more the Riddler to me. And then at the end, his patheticness, when he loses, Riddler is just as pathetic. That worked for me. And so, overall, I like this movie a lot. There are some aesthetic things I would change. I don't like the Riddler's costume at all. That's whatever. It is unique, for sure, but it's not something that I think is going to be iconic. I mean, sure, you'll see people cosplaying it as Halloween, but is people going to look at that costume cosplay and say, oh, look, the Riddler? Or are they going to be like, oh, look, that Gimp from Pulp Fiction? Like, what are they going to guess, is what I'm saying. So, maybe for the next movie they can give them a more unique look. I don't know. I'm just guessing. In any case, I think that's really all I have to say. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I know it's not necessarily going to hit on everybody, but for a comic book Batman fan, I think this will really hit home for you. You gotta try to not compare it too much to Batman Begins or The Dark Knight and stuff like that, because I do think it suffers from that. It was like, well, how does he get the gadgets? How does he, like Gotham City is well developed in here, but it's not as well developed as we saw it in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, where it was like an established sort of thing. It doesn't feel as well lived in, but there were good shots of it that made it look pretty unique. But as I say, it's not bad. Batman Begins and Dark Knight is better handled, but this is unique because it makes it in a different way, and I do like the way that they handle it. Oh, but I do want to say, the ending credits sequence. Yeah, they were trolling you. That's what they did. They straight up trolled you. They made you wait to the end credits and just said goodbye with the Riddler text. And I tell you, my wife was not happy when we waited through the entire movie end credits and that happened. She said, we waited for that! I tell you, it was worth it because you got the whole theater laughing that was there. So... yeah, it wasn't worth the wait, but that kind of made it worth it. But anyways, yeah. In any case, ooh, voice crack there. Anyway, in case, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. See ya. Be sure to check out some of these other videos on my channel. And wait for more coming soon.